Check this out. Yo, check it out. I tried to capture the sound of it here, but you really couldn't hear it. It's a little bit of a rumbling noise, but it definitely transferred through to the steering wheel. This is going to be a long video. I'm going to try and show as much as I can. These are spring compressors I picked up from O'Reilly's, free rental. I was a little scared to use them, but they're actually quite easy. Just had to figure out right combination of placement and clearance. So that one doesn't have the best clearance. It's gonna, once I tighten it, it topped out. So I'm gonna take it back down and force it into the lowest part of the spring as I can get it. As fate would have it, it's a 19 millimeter, the same as the lug nuts. So I'm just using my big impact socket to get it snugged up. So I think this was a 23. Definitely not a 19. Of course, I'm replacing the shocks. Got it pretty loose. Of course, that got it all the way. So there are several different ways to change these out, and a lot of people say lower, just do that and then disconnect the sway bar and then push it down and pull it out, which I'm trying to get to that. One guy suggested don't go too crazy taking things apart and just get it loose and take it out the top. So it's kind of what I was going for too. Here I'm pushing the strut rod back down into the strut. This side was fairly worn out, so it stayed when I pushed it down. Of course, here I'm loosening the 4 nuts that holds the bearing, brace, support, holder, I don't know what it's called, out. This car's pretty clean, but I did spray everything ahead of time with some penetrating oil. Somebody said to mark where that bearing carrier thing is because it could throw your alignment off if you don't put it back in the same spot, but there's no adjustment area that I saw for that, so I didn't worry too much about it. There it is, the worn out bearing, gasket, rubber gasket. Can't tell by looking at it. Felt good. Couple light taps, that sucker fell right out. Alright, so this is the original one that I just knocked out with the hammer. This is the one I got from Pelican parts. This is the one I got from Rock Auto, which for a VW Fox. You can see that size differences. one for the Fox is a lot bigger. It was only $10. I got 2 of them shipped for $10, so I figured what the hell. As opposed to the ones from Pelican were like $180 for a pair. Big difference. I think if I used the Fox, VW Fox one, that might have changed the ride height. I was a little concerned with that. Probably could have compressed the springs a little more. When I did it on the other side, I actually disconnected the sway bar from the hanger, and it gave me a lot more clearance. The kit with the bearings came with a new dust shroud and bump stop. Those pipe wrench fit on there great. Really gripped it. So as you can see here, I had it gripping below that top ring. So I was basically just squeezing it tight with the threads. I didn't know what I was doing. So, of course, penetrating oil. Yeah, if you notice here, I've actually got it on the ring, the top ring of that thing, and didn't really take much to get it going. So it came right out. I find the video for that, but it was pretty clean inside. There was no oil. Instructions with the shocks, struts, said, do not add any oil. I didn't. So here the bearing didn't come with the spacer. So I took the spacer out of the old bearing and put it into the new bearing. I had to waller it out a little bit, but it fit perfectly and worked perfectly. Once again, if I would have removed the sway bar from the hanger, I would have had a lot more clearance.
I'm sure he'll tell you if he wants to go out, right?
So here's the new
Porch
strut with the spacer,
shop cat.
and that came with it. That came with the strut. And that spacer fit right inside and really held it snug. You can see it going in there. Then next was like a rubber gasket. Then after that, the retaining nut.
I'll just put music over it either way.
I was talking to somebody on the side there, but yeah. So I got the big wrench back on that top ring and gave it some turns. And well, it was a little difficult. I still think that's the way to go. So here's the rubber dust cover and bump stop. This came in the kit with the bearings from Pelican. I had a lot of fun doing this. So holding down the rod from the strut and getting everything to go back on top in the right order was a little difficult. So I was trying to put that top of the spring cap on first, but that didn't work. So I wound up putting the bearing and retainer thing back in the chassis. And then the top of the spring cap. And there's another piece. The hardest part is getting the rod inside the strut to stay down long enough to get the parts over the top and through. I'm trying to get the strut rod to come up through the bearing. It's creeping up. I think the rubber bump stop was actually keeping it from coming up. A new retaining nut was supplied with the strut. Just snugging it up. Remove the spring compressor and everything. Get a little pressure back on the nut. And then I'll have it good and tight after that. Really, that's it. That's everything. Put the wheel back on, get the top nut snug to torque to specs, whatever that is, and here's the final product. A little bit of movement, but the knocking is gone. Thing just drives so good now. I'll put parts info in the description. Thank you for watching if you actually made it this far. Thanks a lot. Let me know if it was too long or boring or if I did something wrong.